Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Today's very special guest is Mr. Travis Smith, gentleman that's been on the show before. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, DV. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, you had won. You won your election in the city of Waxahachie. You've been a councilman there for a little while. How's that gone?
It's going great. The first year, which I'm in year 3.5 now, I guess. Second term. The first year is like drinking water through a fire hose for sure. It's a lot to take in. You learn a lot of hard lessons and hard truths. You learn a lot about what not to do and what not to say. And then year 2 and 3, you get to start to be effective. In my short time there, we've opened a new fire station. We were proactive in purchasing new equipment for both police and fire. We completed and funded a compensation study for the entire city. That's down from the lowest pay level up towards the top, not at the top. That included new step pay and collateral pay for both police and fire to help with retention there. We've got merit bonuses now for city staff. It's been great. It's been exciting to get some big projects done. But
It sounds like you've been busy.
Yeah, but it's been more exciting to help the folks who serve our residents, and that's been the most rewarding part for sure.
Yeah, well, you know, them dudes, they do. There's a lot of work that goes into keeping a city running and everything functioning for the people of Waxahachie, and I'm sure you've learned that in the last few years. But the reason why I have you on is because you are running for Ellis County Commissioner's Court, Place One.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
you know, I was
Sir.
I was pretty surprised by that.
It was kind of always the goal and dream. I first got a taste of it my junior year of high school. I worked roads and bridges and clearing blind corners for Commissioner Heath Sims in Precinct 3. Cleared a lot of blind corners in Maypearl. Learned a lot about learned a lot about how tough it is to work that job in the heat of summer. There is not enough shade in the county for sure. So it was kind of always a dream. City council was an opportunity that came along, and I felt a need and a calling there. But kind of after thought, lots of prayer, lots of talks with my family and close friends. You know, I mean, I have the time right now. I have the energy. If I weren't to run for this commissioner seat now, you know, it'd be 4 years down the road before it comes up again. And there's no telling what challenges our county could be facing between now and then, or where I might be in life. So it's kind of a perfect storm, and I was excited to get my name on the ballot.
So you're running for county commissioner. It's been a dream. What do you hope to achieve if you were elected as? What is that main purpose that you have if you were elected as Ellis County commissioner?
I think the main objective would be to just bring some energy and some transparency. And I don't use that word to suggest that they're not transparent now. But growing up here my entire life, you never really knew who the commissioners were, right? I mean, they were in the courthouse, but they weren't out in front of the residents. They didn't really take on that role of being in the community, being super involved. I think Lane Grayson has done a fantastic job there. Paul Perry has done a great job there. So I'm looking to kind of take this position and bring it forward, move it into the 21st century. You know, I've got lots of fresh ideas, lots of energy. It's a daunting task, but that would be first and foremost. But outside of that, taking care of our county employees the same way that I've already proven to do on the city side, investing in our sheriff's office. I think that's critical because at the end of the day, the county's not getting smaller. And I don't mean the county and land, right? was 3 sessions ago, I believe, when the state house passed where cities can't force an annexation on a property, right? That's great. The unforeseen downfall of that, I guess, like the catch 22, is that now there's more responsibilities building on the county, and they're building daily. So the footprint of a city isn't growing, the county's not shrinking, and all of the development, all of the new homes, all of the MUDs, all of the PIDs, those are all going into county now. So there's more county streets. There's more homes in the county. There's more responsibilities, and that's a task that you've got to be very proactive for.
You have the city stuff going into the county, like you're starting to get communities, and it's looking like a city, but it's county. You got all these roads, you got all these buildings. I'm seeing that, that what would normally be cows and whatever is now a full development. That changes how you got to handle that precinct, I imagine.
Exactly. And in Precinct 1, that the area kind of Pearson, Pratt, and Red Oak, kind of going from there east towards Ferris, that's right for development. So if we don't have someone that has an eye on that area specifically, that's willing to work with the city of Ferris, the city of Red Oak, to work with them collaboratively on addressing that growth, being proactive in addressing the growth, and also helping to ensure that those officials and the residents that will be impacted are aware of what's coming. So I guess it kind of goes back to the accountability and availability part.
So I want to ask you about that, because you had mentioned transparency, Travis, and what would, like, transparency, accountability, what would be some of the newer things you'd like to do to bring more of that to the county if you were elected?
Well, I think we both know that I spend a little too much time on Facebook at times, trying to respond to all of the questions.
You are responsive,
silly or not. I return every call and every text message the best I can. I respond to pretty much everything on social media if I can find an answer. So that's the transparency part. I'm not going to hide anything. There's not a vote that I'm going to shy from. There's not a question that's too tough for me to either answer then or find an answer to. But the availability part, the more that you're available to the constituents, the transparency just kind of comes there, because if you're in front of them and you're standing right there, you're going to have to answer the question. You can't run from it. So being available, being engaged, attending sporting events, which I do that anyways. I still cover sports. It's a great passion. But just being at those community events, that invokes both the availability. Transparency comes right behind that.
Okay. So one of the main function of the county is the jail, the sheriff's office. That's like almost number one priority, along with roads, and we'll get into all that. But I wanted to get into the sheriff's part. So I had the sheriff on, and we talked about and the courts. That's part of the county. I had the sheriff on, and we talked about how there was issues with getting trials and stuff like that, overcapacity, budget increase for healthcare costs for the inmates that were in there. And he was talking about because I think it's just recently, within the last year, started paying overtime in the jail, compensation, having to compete now because Ellis County is it's growing, and that it's growing, and it's basically going to be connecting to Dallas, just one big connection. Well, you're getting that kind of population, that kind of traffic going, and the jail. I mean, you're competing with Dallas, you're competing with Mansfield, you're competing with all these different places, and you're trying to keep these sheriffs in there. So that's kind of what we had been talking about. So I want to know what are your thoughts on supporting the police, the sheriff, especially if you were elected commissioner, and what are some of the things that you'd like to see happen when it comes to dealing with the sheriff's office in the jail?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So in my opinion, funding and supporting the sheriff's office is the top priority. I've seen what a compensation study can do at the police level and the fire level, and I've seen how it can boost morale. I've seen how it can improve the recruitment process, but also the retention. And that's huge, because if you're down one deputy, it takes 6 months maybe at best to find a replacement for that one deputy. And then at best another 6 months to train them on how this office will best operates.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have one deputy leave, at the absolute best, you have a full year before you even come close to replacing what just left. So retention is huge. And you get to the retention point by ensuring that we are funding the salaries, we are giving them the benefits that they do need, that the step pay is there, that the lateral pay is there, that we have adequate substations. I don't know off the top of my head, outside of using a county barn, where a sheriff's substation might be. But they're needed. These guys are out there, these guys and gals, and they're out there on a shift. If you're out in Ferris and you got to come back to the sheriff's office and then go back out to Palmer and then go out to Italy, that's a long day, and that's a tough shift. When you start to think about the mental load that puts on them, it's not healthy. It's not conducive to a healthy work environment. And we need those guys and gals to feel supported, and to be on their A game at all times, because they can't have an off day. If they have an off day, it results in being on the front page of the newspaper, or being bashed on TV. So whatever we can do to support the sheriff's office needs to be done. I've been told that the sheriff's office used their own budget to conduct a compensation study that still hasn't been considered. That's not acceptable. I don't know that for 100% fact, but I've been told that. And if that is the case, that they use their own budget to conduct the compensation study and it still hasn't been considered, that's awful. It's, I guess, long story short is I hate MUDs, and I'm very passionate about that hate. I'm very vocal about that hate. But as a commissioner, I would feel that it would be imperative for me to get ahead of it, attempt to get the city involved with that MUD, to try to get it into a PID if at all possible. Educate that developer on what a PID actually is, because then at least the city will have a seat there to restrict the density some, right? These MUDs, they try and pack 4 and 5 homes, 6 homes on an acre.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, and they do that solely because it helps them collect back their investment faster on that bond, not because it's good for the area. Because if you're packing 5 homes or 6 homes on an acre, right, and you're thinking, all right, there's 6 homes on an acre. This is a 100-acre development, so we've got 600 homes. You factor in about 3 people per home, 3.2 per home. So now we're at 600 homes. We're at 20,000 people, 22,000 people in a 100-acre spot. Well, if there's 2 kids for each home, we're at 11,000 kids that are now going into that school district, and it's like that instantly.
Wow.
What's the school going to do? If you got 6,000 to 10,000 new kids that are going into a school, now the school district has to be reactive because they can't be proactive there. They don't know it's coming. They can't stop it. So now the school district is reactive. They have to build new schools. They have to expand schools, or they have to get the portables. So now the safety's that's a whole different deal. So then the school goes for a bond. The residents get pissed because now they have to vote on a bond, and that's going to affect their pocketbook. And why? Because we had an out-of-town, out-of-state developer come in, found land, only had to answer to a group of 3 in Austin, and now there's a MUD there that's going to have questionable water delivery. The sheriff now has additional streets. The county now has additional streets. These MUDs are hopefully doing the streets up to kind of sort of to state code. So it's a concrete street. The county doesn't currently do concrete streets. So in 20 to 25 years, when that street goes bad, are we going to have to go back and do the concrete streets now? Are we budgeting for that now? Do we have the equipment in place now? The answer to that is no, we're not. So now we have a whole new issue of how do we address these concrete streets that our sheriffs are having to drive on, that the ESD volunteers are having to
Yeah.
drive on, that the school buses are having to drive on, and now we got terrible streets, and we can't just chip seal them because we don't have that kind of equipment when it's a concrete street. So that's your
Often,
doomsday
often,
on us.
right. No, I mean it sounds terrible. So the county commissioner's court or the city is powerless to stop these guys.
For the most part, yeah. We can file suit. We can try to tie it up in court. And what we've seen so far is that the best way to fight the MUDs is to delay. Whenever a resident sends in a question for TCEQ or a comment, they have to respond to it, right? So that's why that group, that Citizens Against Ellis County MUDs, has been so effective. Is because they get a large group of residents and they just send comment after comment after comment after comment, and then they have to be responded to before the hearing can take place. So that's the most effective way that we have right now, is just to delay the best we can. If I was elected to be the commissioner for Precinct 1, you can bet every dollar that you have that I will spend quite a bit of time in Austin this next session, knocking on the door of every representative and senator that I can to try and relay the importance of empowering the county to have some kind of say so and oversight. And I'm not for bigger government, but this is, in my opinion, fighting that fight is fighting to get control back locally,
Right.
Smaller government.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, that definitely MUDs are something that it has to be brought back. It's in our community, yet they're not part of our community except for the money that they take out, which is not cool. But I wanted to talk to you about another thing when it comes to money, and that's taxes and budget. Now, the county is the smallest portion of your tax bill. And so the tax rate really isn't that big, when it comes to your properties. But, nonetheless, property taxes are high and a lot of people are dealing with that. You have done things on the city council where you voted for I'm sorry, was it an abatement or something? An abatement, or you lowered or 10% abatement or something like that for people?
This past year, Billy Wallace and myself started the process, and then we had great support from Pat Suter and Chris Wright. Waxahachie became the first city in the county to open up and offer every available homestead exemption. So that's for our vets, that's for the over 65. Every single homeowner now has that for sure option. So we've opened that up. I hope that continues across the county. I know that Midlothian followed suit, and they actually went higher than we did on that homestead exemption, which I wish we had pushed it more, but we just kind of wanted to test the waters first. But that's something that I definitely want to bring to the county side also. I think pretty well by now, I'm never going to campaign on cutting your property taxes or cutting the tax rate, but I'm going to find unique ways to offer the residents some relief, and I'm going to use every tool that we have. I don't think that as someone who's fiscally conservative and responsible that you can campaign on cutting the tax rate. And I get that kind of goes against the norm, but cutting the tax rate right now as a way to save a few dollars per home right now, how is that going to affect us in the future? There's some purchases that need to be made right now in order to save money in the future. So by prioritizing some purchases and projects, you're actually being more fiscally responsible than you would be if you cut the tax rate and then kicked that can. Can kicking is the worst thing that any elected official can do.
Right.
So, for instance, with the city of Waxahachie, if we cut the tax rate 2 cents, right? So if we cut it 2 cents, that would have saved the average homeowner like $84, but it cost the city $1.5 million.
Right.
Well, that $1.5 million helped to buy the fire engine for Station 4 that we just did. Had we not have bought the fire engine when we did, in 3 months, that engine was going to cost $200,000 more. So when you look at it like that and you're being proactive with your spending, um, you can't campaign on cutting the tax rate.
Right.
So
Well, on the budget though, and I understand that definitely. I think covering these city and county and stuff for the last few years, I've learned I've learned kind of the some of the realities of it when you're actually sitting there and you're looking at the numbers, and what comes at you and kind of thing. So the tax relief is needed. There are ways to do it. Definitely should be considered. When it comes to budgets, how do you deal with those, and how would you deal with those if you were elected as commissioner?
yeah, so there has to be some level of trust between the departments, right? So when you're looking at a budget for the sheriff's office or the DA's office, or like the clerk's offices, there has to be some level of trust on most of like the minor things, right? And if you don't have that trust, then there's an issue there anyways. With Ellis County being as conservative as we are, and the elected officials being held to that standard, I feel it's relatively safe to extend that 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 trust.
Okay.
Now, when the oversight is really needed, the big ticket things for sure. But we've got to have a growth plan. We have to have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. We have to have those bigger needs put down on paper, and for us to sit down with all the departments. It can't be done with just the commissioners, but with all the departments and say, all right, a 1 to 10 scale. How important is it for the sheriff's department to buy 10 new vehicles this year? Now, I know the sheriff's department does a great job with leasing there, and then buying back, but those kind of things. How important is it to execute this right now, or is this a 3-year plan? Is this a 5-year plan? And sitting down with all of those departments to put together that comprehensive growth plan, I think is the most important part to any budget building process.
Right. Yeah.
So that comes back to being available, being engaged, and actually wanting to make that happen.
Okay. So if you're what is the biggest challenge, Travis, that you see that the county is going to be dealing with? I mean, in the let's say in the next 5 years, let's get a little more closer. In the next 5 years, what are the biggest problems you see the county dealing with?
And I can't say growth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, growth is definitely there.
Yeah, it is. In my opinion, and this is not, again, this is going to kind of go against the norm. I feel that there's been too much of an emphasis put on cutting the county's tax rate. And not that I want to grow it exponentially, but I feel like that's been too much of an emphasis. Because again, I don't believe that just saving for today is a fiscally responsible way to approach tomorrow. So what I see is that, and we've experienced it already on the city side. So if I've seen it on the city side, if I've been involved with it on the school district side, being on those growth teams and plans, I know it's coming for the county as well. There's going to be a financial shortfall, and I mean just from the roads alone, right? Again, the cities aren't growing, so when these new roadways come in, they're counted. That's the responsibility of the county. The sheriff's office, we need more deputies. The jail it's going to have to
more detention officers.
Footprint of it currently, so we're going to need a new jail. It's reaching the end of life anyways. There's going to be a significant bond to pay for that. And do we have the trust right now of the entire county and the residents to go for a bond of $70 million to build a new jail? I don't know, but that's a financial shortfall that we're going to have to find a way to address that. The county has done a fantastic job with expanding the services, and constructing or renovating new offices and buildings now without having to go for a bond. But that jail's an issue, and it's coming sooner, not later. And because there's been such an emphasis on cutting the tax rate, it's been cut 5 cents, it's been cut 6 cents, it's been cut 24 cents in 5 years, whatever it is. that's affecting the county budget. And now we're seeing it. The sheriff's office isn't getting the compensation plan approved because there's not enough funding for it. The DA's office needs higher pay to be able to improve retention. We need to add an additional court to help process all of the inmates that we do have, all of the misdemeanors. So there's those things that are going to have to be addressed. And I believe that in the next 4, 5, 6 years, we're going to really start to see that financial shortfall because of the emphasis that's been put on, I'm going to cut the tax rate, and that's what I'm campaigning on.
Right.
And that's unfortunate.
Well, I mean, there are definitely some challenges, and when you look at that jail, it does look like it's reaching end of life. Sheriff does a great job with it. That's just the building I'm talking about in general. But how important is it to have a relationship with the cities within the county, and especially the cities within Precinct 1?
I think it's vital. The phone line should always be open and hot between the county and the cities. We have to find ways to work together to collaboratively approach growth. Find some cost saving ways to work together on some projects. Whatever we can do to in the long run help the citizens and better the community itself, it needs to be done. I had an opportunity to sit down with the Ferris Executive Leadership Team. It's a mouthful. And they expressed some concerns about the current relationship between the county and the city of Ferris. I've heard the same concerns in Red Oak. I know from the Waxahachie side, it's pretty much non-existent unless I reach out. And Todd Little is always responsive. Our county judge does a great job. Commissioner Lane Grayson, who has a large chunk of Waxahachie, does a great job. But I've personally seen that lack of communication. So to that point, those frustrations have a bit of fuel that I can use to improve it there. There's no reason for the right hand to not know what the left hand is doing when both hands are working for the same residents.
Yeah. Well, brother, I'm running out of time, but there's one thing that I want to hit before I give you the mic, and that is the way that we do roads. That's the other major responsibility we talked about for the county. They have to do roads. They have to make sure the roads and every time I talk to a county folk, it is roads and bridges. So it is one of the main functions. So can you speak on ways we can do it better, ways we're doing it now? What would you like to see change?
Well, I mean, again, if I go back to when I first started to work for Heath Sims, we were doing chip and sealed in on roads, right? Those same roads have probably been chip sealed 3 or 4 or 5 times since then. That was in 2007. Surely, something has evolved and improved since then. So I don't have an answer on how to address them right this second, but that's something that would get a lot of time and attention, because the one thing that will kill any business or any entity or any elected official is that's the way it's always been. We cannot continue to do things the way that they've always been done. I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. There has to be an innovative and proactive approach to properly address roads and bridges. Even if that, like, for instance, I was putting out signs yesterday over on Pierce Road. The ditches are almost non-existent, and in the areas where the ditches are almost non-existent, the road is awful. Well, that's easy math. The water is sitting there on the road, and it's deteriorating. Dig the ditch out. It's not rocket science, right? But finding new and innovative and cost-saving ways to address the roads is a paramount issue, because again, we're only going to have more, and that price tag is going to continue to increase.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I could speak to you forever, but it does have to come to an end. I'm going to go ahead and be quiet and give you the mic to speak directly to the people of Ellis County, and particularly Precinct 1.
Awesome. Well, DV, it's always an honor to be on. Um, I I enjoy your time. I enjoy what you do for our communities.
Thank you, brother.
You are a God fearing man in every single way, and it is respectable and commendable. And I pray that you continue to have that fire to do what you do.
Love the
Um,
county. Love the county. Going to keep doing it.
and then to the residents, just short and sweet. A vote for me for Ellis County Commissioner Precinct 1 is a vote for transparency, accountability, and availability. I don't make a whole lot of promises, but those are three that you will definitely have from me. Um, it will be a vote for a proactive approach. It'll be a vote to ensure that the county is working collaboratively with our school districts, with our city, with any sort of local contractor that we can to find ways to address some of those growth pains. Um, I can't promise much more than that. Uh, so I hope that works, and I hope to have your vote in the March 5th Republican primary.
Well, there goes that. I appreciate you coming on, and thank you for the kind words. I do this as a labor of love, and I enjoy all the people that I have met. I am so grateful for the people that gave me their time and have given me time throughout the years. It's been an amazing journey. So I look forward to what's coming next. But thank you again for coming on, Travis. Good luck. Like I tell all the candidates, thank you for wanting to serve your community, and you take care.
You too, sir.